Ranking Member Frost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, there's a few things. I mean, one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle was talking a lot about, picking winners and losers with some of the subsidies we saw in the Inflation Reduction Act. And, I've never heard him speak about the tons of subsidies that for, over a century we've given to fossil fuels as a country. And, I agree with Representative Min as well. I mean, the biggest winner from the big ugly law ripping away a lot of these investments we've made in American companies as it relates to clean energy is China, when we talk about that entire market. The other thing, too, that I think is really important to keep in mind is we are not, I mean, I heard this from one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, too. We're not here trying to demonize nuclear companies. None of us are here saying the nuclear companies want to hurt anyone or anything like that. But there is a balance here between the safety of our people and also moving quickly on this. It is our job to recognize and keep in mind. And it worries me when people saying, well, it's 100%, there's nothing wrong with this and that, kind of like what we just heard from Mr. Epstein, that creates this environment where we're more open to big issues, which again can set us back decades as it relates to nuclear. But Mr. Burns, when we heard Mr. Epstein say that, nuclear can't explode like combustion can, you made a face. I just wonder if you have a response to that. And just generally curious when it comes to human health and safety, why are the careful, comprehensive regulations and inspections still necessary?
Well, I think my reaction is that I acknowledge 3 Mile Island, because of design and other facilities we didn't lose the containment. There was some concern over it at the time in terms of some of the assessment. But what we did, I think what we learned from 3 Mile Island, it's not so much whether someone had died or not. It says, but how do we think about preventing that in the future? We don't want to go down that path. And yeah, for example, I agree with Chernobyl, a reactor design that would never have been licensed in the United States. But again, it's about learning and a learning culture in terms of what's the significance of that. There was, for example, no emergency preparedness programs prior to the 3 Mile Island accident. That has went into effect. Other ways in terms of operator, particularly operator competence and things like that, came into being. And so those are the things you learn, and you learn them not just from the big accidents, but other things that have happened over the years. We learned in terms of looking at security measures after the 9/11 attacks, which actually had a benefit in terms of what we saw as we evaluated the Fukushima Daiichi accident and things like that. So it is this, if you want to call it a learning culture, but partly is assessing where you've been and what that may mean. And yeah, it also includes saying, where am I misfocusing, or where do I need to improve my focus? If I could, and respond to that question with respect to the mandatory hearing, I and a number of former commissioners have joined, we've sent a letter in supporting basically the elimination of the mandatory hearing. But what I want to emphasize is that is not NRC's fault. That mandatory hearing has been on the books in the Atomic Energy Act since the late 1950s, and part of that was due to a lack of transparency by the Atomic Energy Commission. Thank you, Mr. Strauss. In terms of not providing the Congress or the general public information about the licensing of what was then the Fermi 1 reactor. So anyway, I support the elimination of the mandatory hearing.
Yeah, and possibly something to explore a lot further, bipartisan way. I yield it back.